Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. Have you ever been stung by a bee? It hurts unbelievably bad. And I've talked about the analogy of covert narcissism being like 1,000 bee stings. I've talked about this on the podcast before. I want to kind of review that analogy real quick here. So if you get stung by a bee and you're talking to your friend about it, man, look, I got stung on my hand. Your friend is going to have some sympathy for you. At least most people would. And it's going to be short-lived, but there's going to be a little bit of sympathy. And let's say, though, that, you get stung again, a second time in the same day. Well, your friend, again, might have a little sympathy for you, but they might just kind of be like, boy, you're really unlucky. This is not your day to be around, be outside or something. Now, a couple days later, imagine that this cycle repeats itself. Well, your friend, maybe they've never been stung by a bee, or maybe they, one time 20 years ago, they're already maybe a little tired of hearing about it, and they just want to talk about other things other than bees. But let's say this continues every single day. Well, you are now obsessed with bees, like afraid to walk outside, looking for them everywhere, and reactive to anything that buzzes around you. Your friend can get pretty annoyed by this, and they think, maybe you're crazy. Like, you don't have any scars or anything, so are you really getting stung by bees? Your friends are gonna finally kind of get a little tired of this. And you're flipping out, but your friends are maybe even trying to convince you, oh, that's just a bee. Bees aren't that big of a deal, or bee stings don't hurt that bad. You just need to get over it. You, on the other hand, are losing your mind. You become obsessed with bees, and you want to extinguish every bee that exists on the face of this earth. Well, this is like dealing with covert narcissism. The stings might seem small and insignificant, especially in this world of violence. You turn on the TV, you're going to see nightly news that are full of violence. And so these little bee stings can feel like, they're just not that big of a deal. And you can even be told that you're overreacting and you're just, blowing things out of proportion. Everyone gets mad. These little examples are just trivial and petty, like a single bee sting. But that's not what's going on here when you're living with a covert narcissist. You're not dealing with one bee sting. This is being stung over and over and over. Today, we're going to talk about these bee stings, but in a different way. I'm Renee Swanson, your host of the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm also an advocate and coach for victims of covert narcissistic abuse. I do offer both group and individual coaching programs, and you can learn more about them on my website at covertnarcissism.com. Now, today, we're talking about the 1,000 bee stings. Actually, we're not talking about the 1,000 bee stings. You see, that's not the problem in the relationship with a covert narcissist. Now, people can relate to it because it does kind of speak to what's going on in your relationship and in your marriage. But the reason the world around you doesn't get it is because that the bee stings are not really the problem. It's what is going on in between the bee stings. So let's talk about this. You see, healthy marriages, they have bee stings too. These are normal occurrences in life. Moments where somebody forgets to put the scissors back where they found them and it frustrates their partner. Moments when, somebody leaves the car on empty and forgets to refill the tank. Or when someone uses the last piece of toilet paper and doesn't replace it. Every marriage has these little moments, these little bee stings, and they might even be followed with somebody being a little cranky about it. You see, that's normal. A moment when somebody maybe says things a little sharply or gets a little defensive. You see, again, these are normal parts of everyday life. And to tell you that they are not would be misleading. And I don't want to do that. It would be setting you up to seeking relationships that are fantasies and not reality. You see, I have a good friend who is in a healthy marriage. These do exist, okay? I do say that, these healthy marriages are out there. And I asked her, I said, do you and your husband ever get mad at each other? And she kind of chuckled and said, yes, of course we do. And I said, well, can you give me some examples of that? and she couldn't come up with any. You see, she didn't have a list in her head of all the 100 or 1,000 times where they got mad at each other. And she said, but I know we do. And finally, she did come up with some examples, and they were the little things, somebody forgetting to put something away, somebody leaving their shoes out in the middle of the floor, the little things that happen. And she said, yeah, we do. We have times where we get mad at each other. You see, the problem is not the bee stings. So what is the problem? The problem is what happens after the bee stings. I remember one time I was at my aunt's house, and I, was a teenager, I think is what's in my head. And I got stung by a bee on my hand, and boy, I hollered, man, did that hurt. Oh my gosh, this hurts so bad. And I wondered, how could something this small hurt so much? Well, my aunt told me, hey, come inside, and she mixed some baking soda and water. And I thought, okay, well, what are you doing? Are we cooking something now? Well, she put that on my hand. Okay, well, this seems strange to me, but I trust my aunt. And within a few minutes, the sting on my hand began to settle down. The change was significant. And so there was this moment of like, oh, wow, this feels a whole lot better. Thank you. And a big, deep sigh of relief. My aunt jumped in to help me. She had the magic remedy, baking soda. What does baking soda do? It neutralizes the bee venom. You see, the problem with the bee stings of covert narcissism is that nothing neutralizes them. There is no moment of neutralization. Let's go back to my friend's healthy marriage. I asked her, I said, okay, what does that look like when you guys do get mad at each other? She said, we might go our separate ways, and he goes to work and I go to work, but both of us are eager to come back and just make sure that each other's okay. She said, we'll come back and whichever one's the first one to get there to this point in the conversation and say, hey, I'm sorry I got mad this morning. And the response from the other person is, hey, I was being overly defensive and I'm sorry too. And that's it. That's the baking soda. It's neutralized. It's gone. It's erased. See, this is what does not happen in a relationship with a covert narcissist. You don't reach the moment where you think to yourself, oh, this feels better. You never get the pressure release, the neutralization of the venom, the damage that this does over and over with no neutralization. Last night I was looking up a word for that. All right. I wanted to finish that sentence. The damage this does over and over is unbelievable. That didn't seem strong enough. Inconceivable, unimaginable, mind-boggling, intense, agonizing, all-consuming, excruciating, torturous. These last words were starting to get there. You see, when you come back after a small bee sting and you say, hey, I'm sorry I got snippy this morning, and they respond, I'm used to it. Well, that certainly doesn't neutralize anything. When you come back and you say to them, hey, that really bothered me when you got short with your words this morning. I'm sorry that I got upset, but it did really bother me. And they respond with, well, that's your problem. I just spoke the truth. That certainly does not neutralize things. This is the problem. They say things like, you always do stuff like that. You should be more careful. Or you're just saying that to make yourself look good or to feel better. You don't really mean it. It doesn't matter whether the issue was over a pair of scissors that you forgot to put back in the drawer or whose turn it is to empty the dishwasher. The initial problem is not the issue, but this inability to neutralize things is absolutely maddening. This is why you end up stuck in circular conversations for hours. And they only end when you do all the apologizing. They only end when you are the one taking care of all of their feelings and making them feel better. You're apologizing and you don't even know what you're apologizing for. And when you attempt or when you accept their half-hearted apology, it's more attention-seeking than caring. from them. You have to put in all the effort to accept them and to take care of them because clearly they've been so upset and hurt by you. But none of this neutralizes the pain that's inside of you. When you walk away from a circular conversation, you are still just as stung as you were when it started, and in fact, even more so. Maybe you get the silent treatment for days, and it only ends when you cross that massive gap. You're walking on eggshells, you're tap dancing around them, telling them how wonderful they are, fixing their favorite meal, buying them a cute little gift, pretending like everything is fine. Well, this certainly does not neutralize the pain that is inside of you. Maybe they're yelling at you, calling you names, declaring absolutes, and revisiting everything you've ever done or said. When does this stop? When you submit, when you tell them that they're right, when you give in on every issue, basically just rolling over. This is not a neutral zone. This is a war zone. So when you're trying to explain the situation that you are or were living, don't focus on the bee stings. Bee stings are a normal part of a marriage, and you're going to hear responses such as, that happened to me. I remember the one time that, my husband and I, or my wife and I, we got so mad at each other. They're going to share with you about their bee stings. They're going to say, I remember that time, we got so mad at each other, but, we laughed about it later. Have you ever laughed about it later with your covert narcissist? No, you never bring it up again. You never talk about it again. Why? Because it's never safe. You see, these responses will not help in the situation that you are in. Instead, focus on the real problem, the inability to neutralize any and every situation. You never feel heard. You never feel validated. You never feel cared for. My aunt cared for me, and I trusted her. I didn't understand what she was doing, but I trusted her because this was a safe relationship. The covert narcissistic person doesn't even give you the space to truly care for them. When you try, you are still met with abrasiveness and resistance. Now, I want to take a minute here and talk about those kids you are raising in this environment. As you are raising these kids, do not focus on the times that they get angry over something small. This is normal. It's going to happen. Everybody does it. I don't want us focusing on the wrong thing here. I don't want us trying to raise kids who believe that they are never allowed to get frustrated or cranky. I don't want us to raise kids who believe that their partner should never get fussy or cranky. You see, these are normal human things, and everyone is going to experience this. Trying not to will lead to massive amounts of frustration or living in a fantasy world. That never land where we just let all the frustrations disappear and we never talk about them. Kids that are raised in an environment where the bee stings lead to massive amounts of drama, the circular conversations, the passive aggressiveness, the gaslighting, the blame shifting, all the things we've talked about, basically a narcissistic environment. Kids who are raised to believe that these bee stings cause all of this drama can easily become very reactive to the bee stings. So this causes them to go forward being very reactive and hypersensitive. Anytime somebody, doesn't replace the toilet paper on the toilet paper holder, they're now hypersensitive and reactive because they're anticipating the drama. This can lead them to exhibit the very narcissistic traits that we are fighting against. Let your kids know that it is okay to have moments of problems and moments of being upset. Instead, focus on their ability to reconcile. Teach them that it's okay to have these feelings. It's okay for our feelings to get hurt, even with those we love and care for. This is normal life. Teach them that things wear off, that they're momentary, they're brief reactions to a single situation. It's okay to get mad at someone you love. It doesn't mean you don't love them anymore. It doesn't mean they're not a good person. It doesn't mean they don't love you. Teach them to see the bee stings for what they really are. They're tiny bee stings that they can laugh about later if they'll let things neutralize. They need to learn to see past the little bee stings to the love and care that is needed between people. Teach them to genuinely apologize, to be vulnerable, and that it's safe to be vulnerable. It doesn't threaten who they are as a person. Teach them to give their friend, coworker, family member, partner the safe space to genuinely apologize too. Help them to learn to care for this person during their time of vulnerability. Focus on what happens after the bee sting. Then we are learning this art of neutralizing the venom of the bee sting. I wish you and your kids so much peace on your journey of healing. You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism podcast with your host, Renee Swanson. Be sure to check out our website at www.covertnarcissism.com. There you will find many resources just for you to help you on this journey. You can also reach out to me by email at Renee, RENEE, at cnglifecoaching.com. Those letters are CNG, as in Covert Narcissism Group. I do look forward to hearing from you. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson and the Covert Narcissism podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. It does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and information provided.